The Newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Pauline Berzosa. China has released the video allegedly showing Filipino soldiers in Ayungin Shoal pointing guns at them. The 30-second video released by a Chinese state-controlled media shows the airdrop of supplies to the BRP Sierra Madre on May 19. It also shows a Chinese inflatable boat approaching the decaying warship. This is when the Filipino soldiers stood on the deck of BRP Sierra Madre and observed the approaching rubber boat. Still, the video did not show China's claim of Filipino soldiers pointing their guns at their Coast Guard officers. But in an Inquirer report, an anonymous ranking military official said the Chinese Coast Guard seized and threw away the supplies meant for Filipinos. The Armed Forces of the Philippines has yet to confirm this incident. President Marcos and his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky met for a bilateral meeting. They spoke about strengthening diplomatic ties amid Ukraine's war with Russia at Malacanang on Monday. Marcos assured Zelensky that Manila remains committed to assisting Ukraine. Zelensky thanked Marcos for his administration's clear position on the Ukraine-Russia war.
Thank you so much for your big word and clear position about us, about this Russian occupation of our territories, and thank you on your support on the, in UN nations with your resolutions.
I know that the crisis in your country has occupied all of your attention and all of your time, and it is a great pleasure to meet with you, to discuss some of the issues that are common to our two countries, and hopefully find ways forward for both of us together.
Right before that bilateral meeting, Marcos and Zelensky were at the Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore. For political analyst Richard Haydarian, Marcos delivered a balanced speech during the forum. Here's an excerpt from his interview on The Big Story.
President Marcos had the stage for the very first time. The Philippines had the stage for the very first time. And conversely to U.S. Secretary Austin, he made some very, very strong statements at the Shangri-La Dialogue. He did say, of course, the Philippines will not yield. We will defend the Philippines at all costs.
Well, it looks like it's the same speechwriter that he did also a speech for the Australian Parliament. Remember, a few months ago, he was for a state visit to Australia, and he made also exactly the same thing. He said Filipinos do not yield, and that what he's doing in the West Philippines states not a reflection of his personal preference, it's a reflection of his mandate to the Filipino people, especially when surveys are saying 70-80% of Filipinos want the current direction of our foreign policy, which is standing up to China, resisting the bullying there in the West Philippines. I think in fairness to President Marcos Jr., he tried to create a balance because he's very conscious. He's invited by Singapore, a country that tries to have a neutral relationship with both superpowers.
You think he was also trying to appeal for more support in the ASEAN region? Was that part of the strategy?
Yeah, I think that was definitely part of the strategy to say to the rest of ASEAN, we are one of you. We're not America's deputy, sheriff in ASEAN. We're not the troublemakers here. We're the one being bullied. We're the weaker party, right? And I think China was not very convincing when they tried to paint themselves as the victim and as if there's an Asian NATO forming around them. That is definitely not the case. So I think China was pretty poor in terms of its defense diplomacy, if any diplomacy at all. Well, I think President Marcos Jr. did a pretty decent job of trying to reach out to the rest of the region. But of course, the Shangri-La Dialogue is a global phenomenon. There are representatives from France, from Britain, from Germany, from many countries all around the region. And I think Marcos was also trying to reach out to those countries. And if you look at the speech of Marcos Jr., it perfectly, jives and syncs with the keynote speeches by previous keynote speaker. For instance, Malcolm Turnbull in 2017, who presented Australia as a bridging power, middle power, who doesn't want to be dictated upon by the superpowers. Speech by Narendra Modi in 2018. Speech the other year by Fumio Kishida of Japan.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Pauline Verzosa. Let's now take a quick look at today's other headlines. The Philippine Star reports that the bill raising the teaching allowance of teachers has been signed by President Marcos into law. Under the Kabalikat sa Pagtuturo Act, allowance of public school teachers will increase from 5,000 to 10,000 pesos beginning school year 2025 to 2026. Meanwhile, at Business World, factory activity in the Philippines expanded at a slower pace in May as employment declined. The S&P Global Philippines Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index stood at 51.9, slightly down from 52.2 in the month of April. More Filipino couples are preferring civil weddings over religious ceremonies in the past few years. This is according to the Civil Registration Service. Assistant National Statistician Marisa Grande told 1PH sa Totoo Lang that they noticed the shift of wedding preference from 2018 to 2022. Based on the latest data from the Philippine Statistics Authority, 43.3% of registered marriages in 2022 were contracted through civil ceremony. 32.8% were officiated in Roman Catholic Church, while the rest were done in other religious rites.
Nakikita na natin yung behavior ng ating mga kababayan towards yung marriage, which is nag-shift na siya from dati po na yung mga datos natin ay piniprefer yung religious rights, ay ngayon po ay karamihan sa mga kababayan natin ay nagpapaksal na po sa civil wedding.
There are around 200,000 overseas Filipino workers in Singapore. Aside from the high salary, it is also said that OFWs are treated well there. Mobile Journal Julie Baiza has the story.
Higit 200,000 ang mga Pinoy dito sa Singapore. Karamihan sa kanila ang mga professionals at nasa household services. Kumustahin natin yung kalagayan nila dito. Isa sa mga OFW na nakilala natin sa Singapore si Ate Jenny. 20 anyos pa lang siya nang unang makipagsapalaran bilang domestic helper. Sa ilang dekada niyang pagtatrabaho, nakakapagbahagi na rin siya ng kanyang mga karanasan. Sikat na nga rin siyang content creator sa mga kababayan natin sa Singapore. Pampa-good vibe sa mga ibinabahagi niya. Pero sa likod ng mga kwelang post, ang mga pinagdaanan muna niyang lungkot noong nagsisimula pa lang bilang OFW.
1 week pa lang ako nagsimula dito. Grabe, ang iyak ko sabi ko, walang ticket. The next day, sabi ko, uwi na ako. Nagpapaalam na ako, tapos ko, uwi na ako.
Sunod na sinubok si Ate Jenny nang pumanaw naman ang kanyang mister. Dahil mag-isa na lang nabubuhay sa kanilang anak, mas pinagbutihan daw niya ang trabaho. Graduate ng HRM si Ate Jenny. Para magamit ang propesyon at makapagtrabaho sa mga hotel, nag-aaral pa siya ng 1 taon dito. Ngayon, isa na siyang housekeeping attendant.
Sipag at sipag ang kailangan ng kaugaran OFW. Maraming problema, pero lahat ng yan may solusyon.
Singapore ang isa sa mga bansang madalas puntahan ng mga kababayan nating gustong magtrabaho abroad. Bukod sa maayos na sweldo, maganda raw kasi ang pagtrato sa mga dayuhang manggagawa rito. Sa katunayan, ayon sa Embahada ng Pilipinas, maraming ipinasang batas na nangangalaga sa karapatan ng foreign workers. Kaya lang, matapos ang 15 taong pakikipagsapalaran dito, na-terminate si Ate Jenny na magsara ang pinapasukang kumpanya. Ngayong Hunyo, uuwi na rin siya sa Pilipinas, bitbit ang pag-asang makakahanap na magandang oportunidad sa sariling bayan. Si Madonna naman na isang caregiver, plano na rin magbalik Pinas kapag natapos ang kontrata.
So gusto ko nang umuwi ng Pinas para magnegosyo, investment. Kasi lahat ng inipon ko ng 6 years dito, talagang binuhos ko sa investment, property investment. Kasi gusto ko din pag uwi ko, yung kasiguraduhan na hindi ako mababangkrut, ganun.
Gusto raw niya matiyak na hindi na niya kakailanganing muling makipagsapalaran. Kapwa man maganda ang naging kapalaran sa Singapore, iisa ang sagot ni Jenny at Madonna. Kahit ano raw ang mangyari, Pilipinas pa rin ang pipiliin.
Masarap kasi mabuhay sa Pilipinas kasi country na yun.
Mas masaya pa rin sa Pinas.
Mahirap makipagsapalaran sa ibang bansa, kaya ang iba sa kanilang pauwi na, baon-baon ang pag-asang makapamumuhay ng maayos at masaya kasama ang pamilya dito sa Pilipinas. Mobile Journal Julie Baiza po, hatid ang mukha ng balita.
And those are the top stories of the hour. I'm Pauline Verzosa. We are One News.